You ask about your own self. Otherwise, we're not going to go home tonight. The Quran and the Sunnah generally will always talk about two types of things, fada'il and masail. Fada'il are those things that are the virtues, the things that tell you, you get this for giving zakat, you get this if you don't give zakat. You get this reward or you get this punishment. That's not what we're going to be talking about today, except very briefly. And then the rulings, the hows, that's what we're concerned with today. Why do the technical rules matter? Like I gave you the example of Fajr, right? If a person was to, for example, after Isha Salah, they started Qiyam and they prayed the whole night. And at Fajr time comes, their wife asks them that, hey, you prayed the whole night, did you have wudu? And you say, no, I didn't have wudu. Is the prayer accepted? No, it's rejected. Why is it rejected? Because there's a technical rule that you have to have wudu. And that's what fiqh is. Fiqh is those technical rules. It's not only about your intention, but it's also about the rules. And fiqh is those rules and those regulations that are derived from the Quran and from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, when it comes to fiqh, there will always be differences of opinion. Why is there differences of opinion? Because sometimes the text of the Quran and Sunnah might not be clear, maybe it might not be explicit, and therefore there has to be some sort of human interaction with the Quran and Sunnah where certain conclusions are made. For example, in the Quran, if you look up the word quru, this word quru, one meaning of it is menstruation periods. One meaning of it is the lack of menstruation periods. And if you have these two different meanings that are completely contradictory, then the rulings and conclusions from that will be very, very different. And that's where the madhabs come. The other reason is because there are new issues and people solve new issues in different ways. And all of these are valid differences of opinion, and all of this is rahmah. It's mercy, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So as we go through these slides, you're going to see a lot of different opinions. You disagree, that's okay. Keep it to yourself, no problem, right? The reason why I'm saying that is because at the end of the day, it's your obligation. It's not my obligation to do for you. You do it for yourself. The other thing is all of the slides are important. My voice is also important, but the slides will give you information. If you cannot see the slides, then I suggest moving and sitting in a better place so that you can actually see what's going on, right? And so today we're going to be doing the how of zakat, not necessarily the why. That's the main thing from this slide. What's on the agenda today? What is zakat? The status of zakat in our deen. Who is required to give zakat? Zakat calendar, beneficiaries of zakat, assets liable for zakat, and then at the end I'll do some quiz or practical example. And the only way for knowledge to really be set in the mind is if you have a test. In Arabic they say وَعِنْدَ الْإِمْتِحَانِ يُكْرَمُ الرَّجُلُ أَوْ يُهَانَ, that during the exam time, that's when a person sees whether they're honorable or whether they're going to be disgraced, right? Inshallah everyone will pass, but inshallah the point of this workshop or this sort of night is that we apply our knowledge and not just learn some random theories. So we'll do the status of zakat first, inshallah. What is the status of zakat? So number one, Islam is built on 5 pillars, and one of those pillars is zakat. There's a hadith of Jibreel where the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel came to him in the form of human and asked, what is Islam? And one of the answers that the Prophet gave is, Islam is giving zakat. Those people that, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ from the Arab tribes that said, we're not going to pay zakat anymore, but we're going to pray salah. We're not going to pay zakat, but we're going to pray salah. What did Abu Bakr do? He declared those people as murtaddeen, as people that have left the fold of Islam. And if a person leaves the fold of Islam, then it's permissible to engage in war with them. And that's what Abu Bakr did. And so the Quran, if you look at it, every time salah comes, zakat comes with it. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And that comes over 30 times in the Quran, right? 30 times in the Quran. Now somebody might come say, Shaykh, but zakat is too much, right? The reality is zakat, we have to look at it in a different way. It's not a burden, it's an opportunity. The loss of monetary value in your bank account today is small, but the win is huge in the akhirah. And on top of it, it's fard. So the status of zakat in Islam is that it is fard, and that's the most important part about this slide. Now here's a very amazing ayah. الذين ينفقون أموالهم بالليل والنهار سرا وعلانية فلهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Those that spend their wealth in the night and in the day, in public and in private, for them is a reward with Allah. They will have no fear upon them, nor will they grieve or become sad. Why do I say this is an amazing ayah? It's because of the last part. They have a reward with Allah. لا خوف عليهم. They have no fear upon themselves. What is this fear? It's the fear of the future. Some people think, oh, if I give zakat, how will I feed my kids? Allah is saying, no, don't worry about that. There should be no fear for the future. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Nor do they get sad about the past. Oh, I had to give zakat. I lost this much money. The point is that when you give zakat, those feelings should not enter your heart. And this is a guarantee from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those that have iman in this ayah. Right? If you have iman in this ayah, you get this. Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he used to say that if a person gives zakat to a needy person, I give zakat to a needy person, and I think to myself that this needy person is more in need of my zakat than I am in need of giving it, then that person's zakat's reward is actually cancelled out. What does that mean? It means, for example, I see a poor person, I give them zakat, and I say, hey, you need this more than I need to actually pay it, right? That person's reward is cancelled out. The reality is the person that's giving zakat needs the reward more than the person that actually needs the money, right? That's how the way that the Sahaba and the Tabi'un look to zakat. That we should be saying, thank God you accepted the zakat. That's what we should be saying, right? And the person that's receiving the zakat, they should say, thank God you gave it, right? Of course. The other thing that zakat does is it reduces wealth inequality, it brings society together, it brings barakah in your life. All of these things are a given because of zakat. Now, I think it skipped one slide for some reason. Okay. Why did it skip one slide? I might have deleted this slide. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you guys verbatim then. Okay. So, what is zakat? That's the question. In Arabic, there are two definitions. There's what we call a linguistic definition and a technical definition. A linguistic definition means what does zakat mean in the Arabic language? Who remembers what fasting means in the Arabic language? Sawm. Can anyone remind me? Anyone? What is it? Stay away from something, withdraw from something, abstain from something, imsak, right? So for example, I say, I'm doing sawm from the TV today. I'm doing sawm from the TV. I'm abstaining from the TV today. But when you and me use the word sawm in a religious sense, what does it mean? It means fasting from food, drink, and sexual desire with an intention from true dawn until sunset. That's the technical definition. So zakat also has a linguistic definition and a technical definition. The linguistic definition, the Arabs, they say, زَكَى الزَّرْعُ إِذَا نَمَى, that the vegetation or crops, right? When zakat is done on them, it means they grow. So one meaning of zakat is growth. That's what it means. It means growth. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ بِهَا وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ. Another meaning is purification, right? Just like we say تَزْكِيَةُ الْقَلْبِ, very similar to the word zakat. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, right? So the first meaning is growth. The second meaning is purification. How does zakat serve as purification? It purifies the sinner. It purifies your wealth from suspicious earning. It purifies you from greed and stinginess and miserliness and conceit. It purifies others, meaning those that are poor, from envy because you have something, right? And then on top of it, zakat also means blessing. This is the third meaning. So it means growth, it means purification, and it means barakah or blessing, right? And so all of these things are there. Now, what does it mean in the Sharia? There are a lot of different definitions out there. I know the slide is not there for some reason. I don't know why it got deleted, but I'll give you the definition. Every madhab has a different definition for zakat. Why does every madhab have a different definition for zakat? It's because when they're writing out the definition, they're trying to write it out in a way where the definition agrees with all of their opinions, right? And so which definition are we going to take? We're going to take the Hanafi definition. If we take the Hanbali definition, Shafi'i definition, Maliki definition, to be honest, you're going to see the opinions regardless. So I'm just going to pick one definition and just go with it. What is the definition according to the Hanafiya? They say the first word is tamlik. Tamlik, which means ownership. In zakat, money must transfer ownership. So the person that has to pay zakat, their money has to go to the poor person. It has to transfer an ownership. Now, let's say that you build a well in Africa. Did you pay your zakat? Who can say yes or no? What's the answer? No. Why? There's no ownership. Nobody owns the well, right? If you take out a poor person for lunch, is that zakat done now? No. Why? Because there's no ownership. He doesn't have the money. You have the money. You spent the money. If you put a poor person in your house and you feed them and you clothe them and you take care of them and you do everything for them, did you finish zakat? No, because they never got ownership of the money, right? Do you see why the definition is really important, right? Then the second part they say is juz'u malin makhsus, that it has to be 2.5%, right? A specific amount, right? That's wajib. Then they say min malin makhsus, from wealth that is zakatable. This is like a word that Americans came up with, zakatable. Like it has to be wealth that's zakatable. Are diamonds zakatable? No. Unless you're selling them, then that's a different story. But generally they're not. Is gold zakatable? Yeah. Is your money zakatable? Yeah. Is silver zakatable? Yeah. Right? So, we do a joke. I'll tell you what the joke is. And I want you to see who can give the right answer. In what situation do you give more than 2.5%? Who knows the answer? Okay, let me make it easier. If you win the lottery, how much zakat do you have to pay on the lottery? Huh? 30%? It's haram. Okay. The reality is you have to pay 100% of it in zakat because it's haram. You don't pay 30% of it, right? It's 100%, it all goes away because it's haram money. You're not allowed to have it in the first place. There's no zakat on haram money, by the way. So if you're selling wine or alcohol, don't worry, you don't have to pay zakat. Your problems are different, right? Now, li shakhsin makhsus, for a specific person. You have to give zakat to a specific person from the 8 mentioned categories. And it has to be with the intention for Allah, right? It has to be with the intention for Allah. This is an inclusive definition. So let's go back over really quickly. Just number 1, ownership, transfer of ownership. Number 2 has to be 2.5%. Number 3 has to be zakatable wealth. Number 4, it has to be, to specific people. And it has to be for the sake of Allah. And again, all of this is after you reach what's called nisab. And I'll tell you what that is later. Now, the Shafi'i definition is there, but I'll do the Hanbali definition. And I'll just tell it to you really fast. The Hanbalis say that zakat is an obligation. It's an obligation upon specific money for specific people at a specific time. It's sort of similar to the Hanafi definition. There's not much additional stuff that's happening here, right? So, okay, now we're done with the definition of zakat. Okay, who has to give zakat? This is where it gets fun. Number 1, a Muslim has to give zakat. A Muslim has to give zakat. A non-Muslim does not have to give zakat, right? Now, if I go, and on top of it, you have to have the intention to give zakat. Let's say that I give $100,000 in January. I just give $100,000 in charity. Did I complete zakat? No. If I give $100,000 and now the last month right before zakat is due, I say, hey, I gave zakat at this month. Does it complete? No, because I never had the intention. So you have to be Muslim and have an intention. Now, here is where the differences of opinion start. The Hanafi scholars, they say that a person must be an adult and must be sane in order to give zakat. What do the rest of the scholars say? The Shafi'is, the Malikis, and the Hanbalis say? They say, no, it does not matter. You don't have to be an adult and you don't have to be sane. Meaning, a child has to give zakat and a crazy person has to give zakat. Now, which madhab are you now? Hanafi. All of us are Hanafi, alhamdulillah, right? Now, maybe you might change your mind after we go through their evidences. What does Imam Abu Hanifa say? Imam Abu Hanifa, he says that just like a child is not technically required to pray salah, just like they're not required to fast, just like they're not required to go to Hajj, that's the same exact thing for zakat. They're غير مكلف. Very simple evidence of Imam Abu Hanifa, closed door, right? Now the Jamhur, they say no. The child must give zakat. Why? It's because the Quran, it says, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً. Take from their wealth, sadaqah, meaning zakat. Does it say children, adults? No, it doesn't say that. It's very generic and general. The other thing is when Mu'adh radiallahu anhu went to Yemen, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? After they accept Islam, after they establish the salah, what do? You take their zakat. And you take it from the rich and you give it to the poor. Did the Prophet ﷺ say, hey, make sure that you differentiate between children and adults? He never said that. So this is where the Jamhur or the rest, the Malikis and Shafi'is and Hanbalis say that. Now somebody might say, man, the Shafi'is, Malikis, Hanbalis, they sound crazy, man. They're trying to take zakat from little kids now, right? That's what people might think. But you have to wait for the other conditions. Once you see the other conditions, then you might think, okay, maybe my children should give zakat. Now let me give you a scenario. What if there's an orphan who's a millionaire? You're really going to say that a millionaire orphan doesn't have to give zakat? That's $1 million of the rights of the poor that's being evaded, right? Yeah, so that's also there, right? That's one of the evidences of the Jamhur, right? So now 90% of us, right? 90% of us, we are people that, we all give zakat. So number two, maybe affect us, maybe it won't affect us. Now, the second thing, and I want you to pause for 1 second, just so we can really understand this difference of opinion. Ready? So if what did we say an intention is required, right? If you have a 5-year-old kid, this 5-year-old kid, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, does he have to give zakat, yes or no? No. According to the Jamhur, does he have to give zakat, yes or no? Yes. Okay. Now, there's one caveat. Let's say that you're in charge of, for example, an orphan. Let's say you're in charge of an orphan, or let's say you're in charge of your own child. It doesn't matter. Do you just give zakat without telling them from their money? Yes or no? They're little kids. Why do you have to tell them? Huh?
If you tell kids, the kid not going to understand what is zakat.
Okay, what if he's 11 years old and he understands? You tell them. You have to tell them because it's their money at the end of the day. You have to tell them because number one, they need an intention to give it in the first place. So let's say you're 12 years old and you didn't become baligh yet, right? Just because you're not baligh, according to the Jamhur, you still have to inform that child and be like, hey, look, I'm giving zakat on your behalf from your money, right? Because it's their money at the end of the day. It's not your money, right? Even, parents, they think, oh, Eid ki money aati hai, it's my money, right? Oh, give me all your Eid money. No, it's not your money, it's still your kid's money. Your kid is financially responsible from day one, according to the Jamhur, actually, right? So, again, both of these opinions are there, whether you agree with one or the other. Because they give scenarios. If your kid has, let's say that, I have $100,000 in the bank, my son was born. I say, yo, Isa, you take all this $100,000. What's going to happen? Does he have to pay zakat anymore? No. Right? So people do these loophole things and the Jamhur say, no, he still has to pay zakat even if he's a baby. Now the next thing is, so if you have a child who has money in their bank account, according to the Hanafis, you leave it. If you're Maliki, Shafi, or Hanbali, you take it out and you let them know and you give zakat from it. Now the third thing is full ownership. Full ownership means you have control, access, and use. This is important because when we talk about the 401k, you're going to see all of these arguments of oh, we don't have full ownership and this and that, and people are going to start fighting about it, right? The fourth thing is your zakatable wealth must reach the minimum amount of nisab. So for each thing there's a nisab, there's a threshold, right? For example, when you're traveling, right? How much do you have to report when you're traveling at an airport? 10,000 at least, right? So you have to report it. That's the minimum threshold that you start reporting it. So in the same thing, there's a minimum threshold where now you have to start paying zakat. And we'll talk about what that is. And the last thing is that an entire lunar year must pass on your zakatable wealth. So you hold the gold for 1 year, you hold the cash for 1 year, you hold the silver for 1 year, you hold your stocks for 1 year, you hold your business inventory for 1 year, so on and so forth. All of this is clear? Okay. Now what's the nisab? Here, there's a few things. Nisab on crops. Does anybody have crops? No. Okay, if you have a garden, don't worry, your garden is too small because most likely you don't have 1,439 pounds of produce coming out of it. Does anybody have that? I don't think so. Okay, so we skip that. Now we go to the nisab of gold. So the nisab of gold is 20 mithqal. The nisab of silver is 200 dirhams. Okay? So we're just going to look over this really quickly. So if you look at the Hanafi madhab, they have a specific amount of grams of gold. And then you have the other madhabs, they have another specific amount of grams. The numbers are very similar, right? The total is either 14,000 or 13,000. By the way, don't take a picture of this because what happens to the value of gold? It fluctuates. So when you decide to give your zakat, that's the day that you're gonna look at it. But I'm just giving you an estimate. By the way, I want to tell you something. 2 years ago, how much was gold worth? Half of that. So that's what you have to check every year. Silver, 2 years ago, was like 400 bucks. Now it's $1,600. So if you invested, mashallah, good for you. But if you didn't invest, like myself, then bad for you. So it's 612.36 grams of silver according to the Hanafis, 596 grams of silver. So these are all nisab. If you reach this amount, then you have to give zakat. Whether it's cash, currency, stocks, it doesn't matter. The bottom line number matters is this, or this. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I said all of these different numbers. Somebody might come and ask, Sheikh, which one should I go with? Should I go with the gold number or the silver number? That's up to you. You decide. You decide which one you want to go with. Now, I'll give you reasons for which one you can pick, and then you can choose on your own. Why do some scholars say that you should pick the gold standard? Number one, because they say it's a more universal standard, right? Number two is that they say livestock, the value of camels and goats and sheep, they line up more with gold than they do with silver. And then they critique silver. They say silver fluctuates extremely. But guess what? Now gold also fluctuates extremely. The last thing that they say is the value of silver throughout history, right, hasn't really been that much. $1,600 is not like, it's not a significant amount of money. You can't really do much with it, right? It doesn't really indicate a person of wealth. So that's why they like the gold standard, right? The other issue is that if, let's say hypothetically, you choose the silver nisab, you choose the bottom one, right, to say now you have to give zakat. If you choose that, then guess what? Everyone that has the silver nisab, they have to give udhiyah. They have to give a sacrifice of an animal. If you're giving a sacrifice of an animal, how much is a goat regularly right now? Huh? 300, 400. If you get ripped off, maybe 500, right? Now, if it's $300-400, and forget the 1,600 amount. Let's go back 2 years. The $400 silver nisab. Now, guess what? You only have $400, and now you have to also do udhiyah too. You're going to only get left with $50. It's going to be very difficult for Muslims to do that, right? And let's say that even if it's at $1,600, even doing the sacrifice of only have $400 off of that, now you only have $1,200, you might not even be able to pay rent anymore. So that's why they say, let's go with the gold. The second opinion is that actually go with what's more beneficial for the poor people. Which one is more beneficial for the poor people? Huh? Gold or silver? Silver. Because silver means now, remember, it's to activate your responsibility. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about how much you're paying on zakat. This has nothing to do with what you're paying. Right? This just says now you have to pay. Now you're eligible to give zakat. So which one is more beneficial for the poor? The silver standard. But guess what? If you're Maliki, Shafi, or Hanbali, which one do you want to pick? The gold or the silver standard if you have children? Huh? The gold. Because now your kids, if they have $1,500 in the bank, they don't owe zakat because they're going with the gold standard. So even for the Malikis and Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, there's other ways to get out of their kids paying zakat. I'm not trying to teach you loopholes, but I'm trying to explain to you. The third opinion is of silver. Right, okay. We'll go to the next slide, but I want to ask you a question. This is a joke, okay? Which one is heavier, 100 pounds of steel or 100 pounds of cotton? Same. Mashallah, you answered it too fast. I wanted somebody to get it wrong. Okay. So does this make sense? I don't have to keep going. The point of these numbers, right, you have to check them every day, and there's a bunch of websites too. The point is to say, hey, now you have to pay zakat because you have this much money, right? So over here, there's a little bit of a slide. So which nisab? If all of your assets are in gold, you only own gold, then what should your nisab be? Gold. If all of your assets are in silver, then what should your nisab be? Silver. If your assets are like how most of our assets are today, they're mixed, they're cash, they're gold, they're silver, then generally, classically, the majority of the scholars actually said what is better for the poor is what you pick. So which one was better for the poor? I said this a few times. Silver. Now, scholars, again, they say if you have mixed assets, then silver is better classically. But now scholars say gold and you may choose either. Why do they say gold? They say gold because it's not just about making more people give the zakat, but it's also about making sure more people are eligible to receive the zakat. Watch, okay, hypothetically, if we go with the silver, what is it? $1,600, right? Give or take. Now, if I have $1,600 and I'm going with the silver nisab, do I have to give zakat? Yes. If I'm a poor guy and I have $1,600 in the bank, and I say, hey, I need zakat money, am I eligible to get it? No, because I went with the silver nisab, right? So this is why the scholars will say go with the gold. Again, I'm just giving you all the arguments. At the end of the day, you choose which one you want to go with. Okay. Now, this is where people like start, getting confused about things. Generally, all of the scholars of America in this issue of the hawl, 1 year passing on your money, 1 year of having zakatable assets, they actually go with the Hanafi method. They actually disregard all the methods. Almost all of the scholars, whether you're Hanbali, Maliki, Shafi'i, or Hanbali, they all go with the Hanafi opinion. Why is that? You're going to understand soon. So this is why I needed the board, but let's see. If you can see, let me know. Let's say that this is the nisab right here. Nisab. If you start right here, can you guys see it? Okay. Let's say this is the first lunar month. This is the 12th. This is the 6th. Okay. I'm not going to do all of them. I'll just do lines. 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Just all these, whatever. You can get the idea. Now, if I start here and I'm below nisab, and then, sorry, this is a bad drawing. Okay, sorry. You're going to understand, I promise. Let's say this is 2 right here. If I start right here, I keep doing the wrong thing. Whoops. It's hard to explain. Okay. I go here. When does my zakat start? In which month? 2. Okay? By the way, ignore this. We usually go by lunar months, but I'm just trying to explain to you. It starts at 2. Okay? Now, let's say that hypothetically, is there an eraser? The magnet on the left is an eraser. Okay. It's a bad eraser. Okay. Now, let's say hypothetically that I go. My zakat starts here, and then I go up, and then I go down below the nisab amount. Then I go up, and then I go down, and then at the time where my zakat is about to be due, right? Let's say that we add 1 and 2 right here. I'm above. When does my time for zakat start, and when does it end? It starts where? It starts at 2, like you guys said. Now, when it went below the nisab amount, do I restart the year? Do I? So classically, the scholars said yes. Classically, the scholars, they say yes, you restart. But the problem with that is that in America, is your bank account static? No, it's constantly going up and down. So what do the scholars they say? They say ignore all of this. The only thing that matters is this and this. The time where your nisab starts, and from that second month all the way to the second month, right? That's what matters. So you're going to count how much money you have here and give it. Now hypothetically, let's say that you went down below right here. Do you give zakat anymore? No. Because guess what? You came from that time all the way to this time. Now, the Hanafis, they give one exception, and that is if your account completely goes zero. If it goes completely zero, let's say this is zero right here. If it goes zero at any point right there, then it will restart. Does that make sense? That's the only time it restarts. They don't care about if you go lower than the nisab amount, ever. Only unless you go to zero completely. You don't have any money anymore. You're bankrupt, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So, now, if I give, what's the date today? Who knows what the date is? 12th? If I give Haris, let's say $17,000. We'll go with the gold nisab so he has a lot of money. I give him $17,000. And now he has to record when he gets nisab. What date is he going to put on his paper? Huh? Which date? What's the date? Incorrect. Why is that incorrect? Huh? No, you have to put the lunar calendar date. Why do you have to put the lunar calendar date? Because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year. If you put the solar year, then there's going to end up being years where you don't end up paying zakat. So it was a trick question, sorry. Okay, so you use the Hijri date. So you look at the start of when you have nisab. Then, so for example, I have it on Rajab 27th. Then Rajab 27th of the next year, I'm going to check if I still have nisab. I'm going to ignore all the ups and downs in the middle. Unless I go to complete zero. If I go to complete zero, then I restart. Does that make sense? Okay. So why the Hanafi scholars say it's about the person and it's not actually about the money. Okay. And it's because in America it's very difficult to track the loss, gains, and it's very difficult. Now, let's say that hypothetically you start doing it the classical way. The problem with doing it the classical way for American Muslims is that guess what? Let's say that if I have nisab on Rajab the 27th, and then, that specific money I have, let's say $17,000 in the bank, it goes down and then it goes up. I'd have to watch every single cent and every single dollar the next year, and I might end up having to pay zakat multiple times. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay, because why? I'm checking every single cent and a dollar. I'm tracking every single thing, right? So if I have, let's say, $1 and it reaches the next year, I owe zakat on that $1, right? If I have another dollar and it reaches zakat, I owe it. But let's say I do that for multiple accounts and multiple things, then it's going to start getting confusing for me, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now somebody might come and say, Sheikh, my zakat due date is Rajab the 27th, but I just got like $100,000 2 weeks ago. Do I have to give zakat on that? Yes or no? I told you to ignore the fluctuations, so you have to. Why do you have to give it? It's because if you were to lose $100,000, you wouldn't have to give it either. So the losses and the gains are equaled out. It's how insurance works, by the way, same exact way. The Hanafis probably influenced how insurance is paid today too. Okay, if you track each cent and each dollar, then you have to pay multiple times because you have to count, okay, this dollar reached to the next year, this account reached to the next year. It'll take it'll take a lot of time to do that. Okay, so this is a little bit of a chart. So you can see right here, if you're looking very closely, so you have nisab here, below nisab. Then your thing starts right here in Shawwal. Now you're going to go all the way and you're going to check the next Shawwal. But hypothetically, if you went out to zero, right here, then when you get back to the nisab amount, that's when you're going to restart doing it. Does that make sense? But if you're just going up and down but never reach zero, then it doesn't matter. Then you just don't worry about it. Okay. That was hard. Yeah.
You want to go back
Okay.
Yeah, so when I reach to the end,
Yeah.
is that how much I pay above the nisab? The amount where it
Yes, that at the end you don't worry about the gains and the losses. That doesn't matter.
one. Even if I make 100,000 and then goes to down and then at the
Yeah.
end of 20,000.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because the losses and the gains they're equaled out. What I mean by that is that let's say if you lose all the money, then you don't owe zakat. Let's say one day before you owe zakat, you lose all the money. Khalas, you don't owe zakat on it. If one day before you gain all the money, you owe zakat on it. So it's like giving a level playing field. Now, what if a person purposely says on the last day that I'm going to, transfer the money over to my wife, right, just to avoid zakat on it? Then there's another problem we have to deal with, right? You might not get the money back, yeah. Huh?
So you have, like at the end of the year, you have 20,000.
Yeah.
So the 2.5%, does it go for the whole 20,000 or whatever is over 14, whatever it is, like 6,000?
No, it goes over the whole 20,000. Has not the nisab is just so you're eligible. That's it. To give zakat.
The whole amount.
Yeah, the whole amount. Yeah.
So basically you're saying between accounting,
Uh-huh.
you want to calculate your zakat.
Uh-huh.
You have to pay zakat to the highest amount that your bank balance needs in that year.
No. That would be really problematic if that was the case. Okay, watch. I'll explain it more clear. This part is hard to explain because people are, they're a lot of times the imams don't explain this stuff. But let's say, let's do Ramadan one. Ramadan one. You have, let's just say hypothetically the nisab is 1,000, okay? The nisab is 1,000. Ignore all the numbers before. Meaning, if you have $1,000, you're eligible to give zakat, okay? Let's say that I have $1,200. Have I become eligible to give zakat now? Yes, I've become eligible to give zakat. Now, if Ramadan 1 in year 2 happens, and I have 900, am I eligible to give zakat? No, because guess what? Through this whole year, I eventually ended up with less. Do I care about whether we're up or down in the middle? No, I could become a millionaire in the middle, but what matters is my actual due date, right?
So if I start, let's say, at the beginning with 1,000, the whole year I'm at $2, and at the end I go back to 1,000.
Yeah, then you owe it. Then you owe it. Yeah. Okay, now.
Is there an opinion about averaging out?
Averaging out? No, there's no opinion about averaging it out like that. That would be great if that was the case, but good luck doing the math for that. Yeah.
So when the curve is below the nisab,
Yeah.
you are eligible to accept zakat, right?
See, technically yes. So this is why, what did I tell you in the beginning? I told you classically what? Classically, if it went below nisab, then the year restarts. But the problem with that is you're living in America, your money is always going to go below nisab because you're investing, you're doing 100 different things, right? And what's going to end up happening is that nobody's going to owe zakat anymore, right? Because they'll be like, oh, alhamdulillah, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, right? So this is why they don't care. So let's say that in the middle, right here, at the 6-month mark, I end up getting $100,000. Do I care about this number? No. If I end up having $500 at this time, do I care about this number? No. If I get $0, if I have $0, do I care about this number? Yes, you restart. That's the only time I care about this number.
So if I get a bonus from my job, I'm eligible automatically, right?
Yeah. Don't get a bonus. Don't get a bonus right before you have your zakat due. Tell them, wait a few days. Okay, by the way, once you actually understand, this is just for the year. Once you see everything else, you're not going to be as worried. Right now you're worried because you're only seeing one part of the whole equation, which is how to calculate the time. Okay? Why do the scholars go with the Hanafi opinion on this all across America? It's so people don't avoid the obligation of giving zakat. That's the reason, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the right of the poor people, and money in America is never static. It's always going up, it's always going down. You're always investing, you're always spending. It's not like back home where, for example, I dig a hole and I put all of my gold and my silver and my cash and that stays in there forever. Nobody does that, okay? In America, okay.
What if some people just say, you pay income tax of 15%, that covers the zakat, is that true?
No, I'll tell you, zakat is not a tax on your income, it's a tax on your savings. Does that make sense? Okay. So, how would I do this practically? Practically, the date that I hit nisab. If we're going with the gold, 16,000. If we're going with the silver, like 1,600, right? So I record that date on my thing, right? It doesn't matter if it's Ramadan or not. It's the date that you get. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for you. You could prepay and do other things to, get it to Ramadan, but for now we'll go with the simple thing. Then you ignore all the fluctuations, up and down don't matter, unless it hits 0. And then the step 3 is after 1 year, after 1 year passes from that start date, that's when you do, and then you just repeat it yearly. That's it. Very simple. It looks complicated, but it's not, I promise. Okay. This is the stuff that's important. Okay. Assets liable, yeah.
Is there a time, like, you just give it before the date, the year, like the due date is basically, or is there like a time limit?
You should give it immediately, actually. Because it's a debt on your shoulders that's owed to Allah, right? So even though the poor people are a recipient, the debt is actually to Allah. You can pay throughout the year if you don't have the means, especially, for example, people that have 401k, as we're going to see, you might not have the means, and we're going to talk about that. It's going to come up. But generally, when is it due? Immediately, right? Generally. But there are exceptions to the rule. Everybody's situation is different. Okay, zakatable assets. Zakatable assets, number 1 is gold, silver, cash, and cryptocurrency. All of these are considered currency. Very simple.
What about stock?
Stock is also part of, well, we'll talk about stock. Stock is part of business merchandise, okay? So business merchandise in Arabic is urud al-tijara. It's this wares of selling and buying, right? It's part of a business, right? Whether we think of stocks as currency, but stocks are not currency, they're actually part of a business, right? Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is merchandise. If you're selling things regularly on Facebook Marketplace, it could end up becoming zakatable wealth, by the way. So be careful. You become a businessman overnight, okay? So just be careful. If you're a real estate agent, not real estate agent, if you're a real estate developer and you're selling houses, right? If you have a car dealership, that's all business merchandise. If you have a grocery store, that's all business merchandise. Stocks is also included in that. The third one is livestock. I'm not going to talk about it unless you have animals. Then you have to come to me, then you have to give me some time to go study, and then I'll give you an answer. Okay. Number 4 is mined minerals. If you have oil in your backyard, right, and you become a millionaire overnight, we'll talk about that too then. First, you're going to give me a cut, and then after that, we'll talk about the zakat of it. Number 6 is buried treasures, right? If you have a buried treasure, don't tell anyone, just kidding. No, Allah knows about your buried treasure. There's zakat due on it. Okay. Do we see these 6 categories? The ones that we're going to focus on are 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Now, huh?
I was going to say, is land included in livestock, like property that you like?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Wait. Okay. One thing. Let me just make sure I didn't leave anything out. Okay. Zakat generally on business merchandise. We'll discuss it in detail. Don't worry about that. Points under it. Okay. Is your laptop zakatable? Why? It's used for business. Well, is it currency first and foremost? No. Is it business merchandise? Are you selling your laptop in your business? No, it's a production item. So you don't. If you have a big gigantic building, do you give zakat on that building every year? No, you don't give zakat on the building. If you have like you're working, if you own Promise Pizza, right? Naveed Bhai, if he owns Promise Pizza, does he give zakat on his big, machine that does all the baking? No. If he did that every year, man, he'd go broke. Right? His business wouldn't survive. But he does it on the things that are sold, and it's the same exact way as currency. We'll talk about how all of this works, inshallah, soon. But do you see, laptop is not zakatable. Okay. Everybody has this mentally in their brain? Okay. So, currency. Which currency is zakatable? Okay. Bank accounts, you just look at your bank account. Wallets, purses, meaning, my dad, he loves to keep a bunch of change in different pockets, right? And men unfortunately do that. And then if they don't wash their own clothes and their wives wash their own clothes, what happens? She screams at them after, right? What I'm joking. But the point is, you have to make sure that your pockets don't have money. Everything has to go into the calculation, right? Even the quarters and dimes that are hiding somewhere in your car, make sure you have them. Be responsible for your wealth. Like my mom says, don't be a lava lutra, right? Don't be somebody who's not disciplined. Gold and silver, investments in particular, is also currency. Okay, now here is where I'm going to stop a little bit. Women and men can both have gold and silver. Can men wear gold? No. Men cannot wear gold. Women can wear gold. So that the gold applies to them. Can men wear silver? Yes. Can women wear silver? Yes. So women have to worry about two types of things. Men have to worry about one type of thing, if it's for personal use. According to the Hanafi scholars, even if the gold and silver is for personal use, it's still zakatable. Are you Hanafi anymore? Okay, alhamdulillah, good. Good luck. To the Jumhur, if it's for personal use, it's not zakatable, right? So for example, let's say my wife at our wedding time, she got some gold. She wears that gold. She doesn't just keep it for investment purposes. She wears that gold. If she's Hanafi, does she have to give zakat on it? Yes. If she's Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, does she have to give zakat on it? No. Good. Alhamdulillah. Huh? To reach, it's not even considered actually in reaching nisab either, actually, because it's personal use. It's not a zakatable item. Okay, now gold and silver jewelry for investing. If I buy gold commodities, silver commodities, or I just keep gold in my house, silver in my house, eventually, maybe, perhaps one day I'll sell it, maybe I won't sell it, but I just have it, it's not being used. Everybody says there is zakat on it.
If I have 5 gold blocks at home.
Yeah, 5 gold coins, 5 gold blocks, right? If your total reaches a certain amount. Now, for business, okay. If you have gold and silver at business, do you owe zakat? Yes, it's business zakat now. That goes into a different topic. If you have coins and bricks, same thing, what you asked. Okay. Now, again, I want to do this really fast. Where do these differences of opinion come between the Hanafis and the Jumhur? The Hanafis, they say yes, even on personal use of gold and silver, there is zakat. Why? Because they say there's a hadith that Aisha radiallahu anha, she had some big rings that she was wearing. And the Prophet asked her where she got this from. And eventually, towards the end of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that if you don't pay zakat on it, these rings are sufficient enough for you to deserve the Jahannam. Okay. Does the Hanafi proof sound strong? Sounds scary. The Jamhur, they say it's weak. Okay? So, again, if it's for personal use, I'm gonna have to say that if you want to take the more cautioned opinion, you can become Hanafi. If you want to take the stronger dalil, you take the Jamhur opinion. Now, which madhab are you guys? Hanafi, alhamdulillah, mashallah, good for you. Okay. Now, 1 second. You might change your opinion. Okay. If you have diamonds, is there zakat on diamonds? Yes or no? See, mashallah. If it's for personal use, of course not. If it's for investing, also of course not. If it's for buying and selling, you have a diamond business, then you owe business zakat. It takes you out of the creed. Does that make sense? So is zakat owned on diamonds for personal use? No. If it's for investment use? No. If it's for business, you're buying and selling it regularly, then yes, business zakat applies. Okay. Huh?
Any merchandise, right? Any merchandise.
Any merchandise, or it doesn't matter whether it's diamonds, it could be rubies,
I
anything.
have like 10 bikes at home and I plan to sell them on marketplace, then I have to pay the zakat.
Yeah, it's inventory.
My question was why gold and silver were recognized then and diamond wasn't? Was it because diamond wasn't there at that time? And
Again, diamonds were there, but again, at the end of the day, the Prophet ﷺ told us these two specific things. Those were the modes of currency, dirhams and dinars, right? Right? It's not necessarily about the gold itself. It's about the fact that it has value. It was used for trading, buying, and selling. Right? Even if it was in the form of like a necklace, you could still use it to go buy food. You can still use it to buy property. Right? Also, yeah.
Consider as a, people buy it in order to sell it, keeping the same price. It's
So,
like investment.
so look. Let's say my wife buys gold, right? She wears it, okay? Now, if she's Hanafi, she owes zakat on it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't, whatever situation. If she's from the Jamhur and she doesn't owe zakat, when does she start owing zakat on it? When she actually makes the intention to sell it. Not because there's a possibility of selling it. Does that make sense? When the intention is made, that's when the thing happens. By the way, this will also answer, Brother Junaid and we were talking about properties that you want to sell, right, later on. Okay? Does this all make sense? How much zakat are you going to give from this? 2.5%. You're going to take all of these together and do 2.5%. Very simple. Any questions, concerns?
So, Sheikh, if some lady has millions of dollars of diamond jewelry, are you saying no zakat on that?
Yeah, be smart. Be smart. Don't invest in gold and silver if you don't want to pay zakat. Look, it's because, like I said, gold and silver, they go back to being dinars and dirhams. They're used to buy and sell. I have a question. If you go take a diamond today, right, and let's go back 1500 years. Okay, 1400 years, sorry. And you go to some Arabian shop owner and you say, here, I'm going to pay you in diamonds. Will he take it? If he knows the value of what modern America is going to, give the value of the diamond 14 centuries later, then yeah, he'll take it. But most people are not going to take it. They'll pick a nice shiny rock and throw it on the side. But if it's gold or silver, he'll definitely take it. And again, it's because it's mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah. So, that's why you can invest. It's better to invest in diamonds than if you want to avoid zakat. Okay?
Yeah, but if you are buying diamonds, your intention would be to sell it later. So you're cheating yourself if you don't,
Again, if you have the intention, right? So at the end of the day, I cannot go into your mind and tell you what your intention is. You do that yourself, right? So, but it's a good point. Okay, wait, before we finish this slide, by the way, this personal use thing, right? Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, Anas ibn Malik, Ja'far, Aisha radiallahu anha, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, all of them said on personal jewelry there is no zakat. And by the way, some of these are Sahaba. So, okay. I hope that makes sense. Huh? Okay, I don't know. Huh?
How do you define regular use? Is that daily use? Is that weekly? Or
Ask your wife, she'll tell you what the thing is, inshallah. There's no specific number or anything like that. Now, let's say that you don't pay zakat and you hoard your gold and your silver, the Quran has a very, very horrible punishment. وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ. Right, this ayah, right? There's a lot of punishments for people that hoard money, right? And they don't pay their zakat on it. One of those punishments, by the way, is a snake coming up to your neck on the Day of Judgment, tying itself around your neck, squeezing, and saying, Ana kanzuk, ana maluk. This is just one punishment. In Sirah, we talked about when the Prophet ﷺ went on Isra, he saw the punishment of those people that withhold zakat money. Don't do it, right? Okay. Does this all make sense? Okay, alhamdulillah. If you guys are tired, we can stop and we can do it on another day. Look, I have a question. If 1400 years ago the diamond was worth $1, are you going to say zakat is on it? It's only because you're thinking in terms of now. That's why. You need to remove yourself from America for 1 second and think about the rest of the world and the rest of history. That's why it's not making sense. Okay. Assets not liable for zakat. Jewelry other than gold and silver. If I have a diamond, if I have a ruby, I have a sapphire, no zakat on it. Everybody agrees. It's not just Huzaifa's making this up. Everybody agrees. Okay? Okay. Now, When do you owe zakat on rubies and sapphires and emeralds and diamonds? When? Business, that's it. Okay. If you have a car, is there zakat on it? No.
How is it, can you explain how a car dealer needs to pay? I mean, what's the?
We'll talk about it, inshallah. The business zakat will come. Because you guys all have stock, so you're going to see how it works. I don't want to explain it right now because that's not what I'm covering yet. Okay. You'll see how it works. You'll see how it works, how the car dealer will give zakat. Or a person that switches hands, husband and wife keep switching money. This is a sign of a disease in the heart. If you're purposely doing it. If it just so happens that you saw a good investment, it's a different story. Does that all make sense? So, ruby, sapphires, no, none of these have zakat unless you're doing business. Cars, no, unless you're doing business. Properties, if it's for use, no. If it's for rent, then the rent only, not the property value. And then we'll talk about if you're planning on selling it, and all of that stuff will come up, inshallah, as well.
If I have a house,
it's basically going to be whatever you have in your bank account, that's right? Because you are
Yeah,
getting
yeah. I mean, it's easy. It's easy. It's a business. So, again, for most people, this is not complicated because most of you guys don't do business, by the way. If you do business, then we can talk about your personal zakat. Now, here's an important slide. You have to really pay attention to this. Because most scholars do not explain this, and this is where all the loopholes come, and it has to be explained. Because only the rich people think about this, right? The non-zakatable assets. These are things that zakat is not owed on. There are two types. There are necessary ones and beyond necessary ones. Necessary ones and beyond necessary ones. Now, how do we determine what's necessary and what's beyond necessary? This is ijtihad. This is not from the Quran and the Sunnah. This is based off of what people today could deem. So what is a necessary asset? Your household goods are a necessary asset. The food in your house, your clothes, your car, your furnishing, all of these are necessary for what? You to survive. Unnecessary things are like fine art, jewelry, high-end watches, sports cars, yachts, vacation homes. Do you see all of this? Does it make sense how I'm dividing these two things? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, okay. Why did I do this? Okay, let's say that a person comes and he has $100,000 in his bank account. $100,000 in his bank account. He purposely goes and he owes zakat right now. He purposely goes and he buys fine art, he buys jewelry, he buys high-end watches. And now his money is completely depleted, right? If his money is completely depleted, is he eligible to receive zakat? I said receive. What do you think is fair? So, okay, this is where this comes into play. If he had invested in necessary things, then yes, he's eligible for receiving zakat. If he had invested in beyond necessary items, he doesn't receive zakat. Because guess what? Then everybody would just go invest in beyond necessary assets after they're done with their necessary ones, and nobody would owe zakat anymore. You're going to understand. Okay. A man has $15,000 in the bank. Let's just say hypothetically the nisab is what? 1,000. Okay? This is our nisab. You have $15,000 in the bank, plus you have a house, car, furnishings, plus diamonds. Do you owe zakat? Yes, you owe zakat. Are you eligible to receive zakat? No. Easy? Okay. Man has $1,000 in the... actually, there's a bad number. Let's do $9.99. Okay. Actually, one second. 1,000... I need to figure out how I did this example actually. 999. Okay, let's do 999 first. That's the nisab. Okay? 999 is nisab. He has $1,000 in the bank. He has house, cars, and furnishing. Does he owe zakat? Yes. Okay. If the zakat is 1,001, does he owe zakat anymore? Yes or no? No. His house, car, furnishings don't matter. Right? The money is what matters. Now let's say he has $1,000 in the bank and the nisab is this right here. The nisab is 1,001. He has the house, car, furnishings, plus he has a bunch of unnecessary items as well. Number one, does he have to give zakat? Yes or no? Does he have nisab? The nisab is this right here. He doesn't have nisab, so he doesn't give zakat. But he doesn't receive zakat either. Does that make sense? Now you understand why I did the whole slide? Because of this last scenario. This last scenario is where people try to do funny business with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? Okay, just to make it one more time clear. Let's just say hypothetically the nisab is $1,200, right? If the nisab is $1,200, in the first scenario, you owe zakat. In the second scenario, you don't owe zakat. In the third scenario, you don't owe zakat, nor are you allowed to collect a zakat, because you could technically liquidate those unnecessary things. Now, do you tell people to liquidate their house, car, and furnishings to give zakat? No. That would be nonsensical. It wouldn't be fair to them. Does that all make sense now? Okay, alhamdulillah.
Most of the wealthy people here in America don't have cash in their bank. Most of them have yachts and planes and,
Okay. This is why I told you the rich dad, poor dad, this is why they do that, so they can avoid what? Taxes. So the same people want to avoid zakat too. So, but again, this is why, like for example, if somebody does that, they get rid of all of their cash. They get rid of all of their cash. They don't have to give zakat, but they cannot also receive it anymore either. They can't say, Bhai Sahab, I only have $500 in my bank account right now, right? But he has five ships or boats outside, right? Out of his $1 million house. He says, give me zakat money. You're going to say, hey, you don't have to give zakat, but you also can't receive it because you have unnecessary items that can be liquidated. Yeah.
So for the ayah you said before that there's a severe punishment for people who don't give zakat. Since the man has like a yacht and art and diamonds, he's trying to avoid giving zakat.
I mean, if that's his intention, if it just happens that he ends up being in the last scenario, it just happens, then obviously nobody can judge your intention.
So if one has a lot of real estate
Mm.
and whatnot, they inherit.
Mm.
That's how you don't have to pay for it.
I mean, it depends. We'll talk about that too. Okay, yeah.
I know people back home, they are below the nisab, like they don't have money in their bank account, but they have like 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs fixed deposit.
Okay. I don't know what 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs
Because
is.
their children, right? So they just keep it fixed deposit somewhere.
Yo, what's zakat?
So
You just pay zakat. You don't get a freebie just because you don't feel like spending any of it.
yeah, I mean, they're like below nisab.
withdraw that money.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that when the IRA and retirement 401k comes, inshallah. If you don't have access, this is where everything will come together. Okay, there it is. Okay, so before we get into this one, there's a lot of opinions. You see all these opinions? I'm going to make it easy. Number one, a pension back home. Let's say you live in Korea, right? If you're living in Korea or Pakistan or India or wherever these classical countries are, if you have a pension, is it an option to put money into your pension or is it forced? Forced. If you know anything, it's forced. You don't have a choice. Okay? So most of the time when you see fatwa from Pakistan, India, Arabia on retirement accounts, it's because their fatwas where they say no zakat is owed on it, it's because what? They're forced. Now in 401k, am I putting a gun to your head and say you have to put money in your 401k? No, it's optional. You can choose to do it, you can choose not to do it. So, okay. Now, somebody once said that my wife forced me to do it. Right? This is a different story. Okay? So, you have ownership of it, right? You technically have ownership of it. Why do you technically have ownership of it? Because number one is that you optionally put it in. Nobody forced you to. And number two is if you really wanted to take it out, forget the taxes and penalties. If you really wanted to take it out, could you take it out? Yes. Okay. So
You have to calculate that after tax.
we're going to get there where the opinions are, right? So we're not doing it yet, but I want you to start thinking first. So it's zakatable, right? This is the difference between the 401k and pension. We talked about that, the choice. If you contributed willingly and can withdraw, then it is zakatable. Okay? Ownership or some ownership. Some people argue that you have full ownership, then their opinion changes. Some people say, no, you don't have full ownership, you have partial ownership. Why do you have partial ownership? Because of the taxes and the penalty. You don't actually get the full money if you were to pull it out right now before retirement. The other thing is, most people don't know this, there's something called vested and unvested. When it is vested, it means that even if you quit your job or you leave your job, if you go to another job, your 401k, all of it follows you. All of it. The part that your employer puts in, the part that you put in. If it's unvested, then let's say that you quit your job and you're like, I'm moving to another job in New York City. Then which part of your 401k follows you? Only the part that you contributed. Why do companies do that? Why do they have unvested 401k things? It's because they want you to be their slave for forever. They don't want you to go. Okay? So, does this all sort of make sense right now? Now, the issue comes is in ownership, I said that you have to have control. That you have to have the money, you can be able to control it, you can be able to invest it, and you can be able to use it. Those scholars that say that you have ownership, they have certain opinions. Those scholars that say you have partial ownership, they have certain opinions. Those scholars that say you have no ownership in it, they have certain opinions. Okay. Now, generally, if you were to pull out your 401k, the penalty is how much? Who knows the general percentage? 10%. Good. The tax bracket differs based off of how much you're making. But the penalty is generally 10%, give or take. The tax bracket, like you said, it could be around 20, 25, let's go 30%, whatever. Okay, now here are the opinions. Number one, this first opinion, if you go to a Hanafi scholar, a Deobandi scholar, if you're a Sheikh Abdul Hakim's Fiqh of Zakat thing that's happening at NAMCC right now, what is he going to say? He's going to say you got to give zakat on the whole thing, like normal. Man, that's going to make some uncles cry right now, right? That's one opinion. And you do that, and we'll talk about when you do it, but you have to give it on the whole thing, okay? The second opinion is on the collectible portion. That's after taxes and penalty. This is the opinion of the Fiqh Council of America, Yasir Qadi, and a lot of modern scholars have this opinion. Number three is nothing. You don't give any zakat on it because guess what? You don't own it. And so you only do it after you collect it. That one sounds like a good opinion to a lot of us, right? I'm just kidding. Now, the fourth opinion, this is where it gets complicated, right? Which is that because of 401k has different types of investment vehicles in it, there are going to be those vehicles that are zakatable assets, currency, those vehicles that are not zakatable assets. So for example, hypothetically, your 401k, I know it's not filled with this, but let's say it's filled with Apple stock, right? Apple has inventory, and then also has services like when they fix your phone and stuff like that. You're going to pay on the inventory, not on the services, part of the business. Now, I have a question. How many of you guys are going to really look into each part of your 401k to do that? Nobody. So what happens, the fifth opinion comes out where somebody did the math and they say, well, no, most likely the zakatable part that's non-zakatable is 25 to 30%. So you'll give it on the 77% or the 70% that's left over. Does that make sense, the opinions? Okay. How does this work in application? This is weird. Okay. I don't know why it's skipping slides. Okay. Okay. In application, how does this work? I'll just talk about it regularly. If you have the full thing, how do you do it? You look at the number that's at the end of the year. So you start at your nisab point, and then you look at the end of the year, and you give 2.5%. Again, after adding your cash and your currency and every single thing, right? Then you do the 2.5%. Now, let's say that you don't have the money in order to pay for it, because you might have, hypothetically, $1 million. Then you just write it down. You just write it down. Why is there some slides missing? You just write it down. I don't know why I'm missing some slides. Okay. Now, the collectible portion, that one's easy. Taxes, after taxes and penalty. Pretty simple. But you do it yearly. You do it what? Yearly. Nothing until collection is easy too. The last one, if you want to do that opinion, then we can talk. But let me see where it's at. I don't know where some of the slides are missing. That's the problem. I don't know why.
So for the last,
But if you can ask, you can ask the question.
the last opinion, which is the fifth one, I think they come up with calculation of 0.005.
Yeah.
That's why how we make it easier. So it's 10% plus 30% plus those assets that the Sheikh mentioned. So they come up with calculation is 0.005 from the whole amount.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Just from the 401k and IRA. That's what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Okay. Bismillah.
0.5 would be 50%, that's right, so you did 0.5%, which is
Point 0.005.
I don't know why I'm missing slides.
0.005 would be 0.5%.
Huh?
Yeah, that's
Because 100% is 1.
that's like instead of 2.5, it's 0.5. It's 0.5.
It's okay, so 2.5% would be basically 0.025.
Okay. I had an extra slide and I don't know where it went, but let's just do stocks for now. Okay, but do we kind of get something practical we can do out of this?
So Sheikh, for the option number 2,
Okay. Yeah.
is it the final amount in your account?
So, okay.
Like that, or from what if in the last 1 year your stock took a dive or took a
So watch. Let's say that you had 100K, right, at one point where your zakat year started, hypothetically. Then it goes and it hits 90K at that year mark. What do you give zakat on? 90K fully, if you're doing opinion 1. If you're doing the second one, then minus taxes and minus penalty. That's it. Very simple. It's not complicated. Does that make sense? You don't, the losses and the gains, it doesn't matter.
what if it went to 130?
If it went to 130, then you do the same thing, 130 here, and then you do that.
Here, but
So it's
90K is not collectible,
not the
right?
30.
Huh?
90, you cannot withdraw 90K, that's not collectible.
I'm explaining that right here. You-
No, even, I mean, if you have 100K, they won't allow you to withdraw all 100K. There is a limit that you can withdraw.
did you read all the opinions?
Yeah, I'm talking about option 2.
Okay, so option 2, like I said, after taxes and after penalties paid. I'm not saying to give zakat on the whole 90K. When did I say that?
Even you can't say
even in that the collectible portion refers to that.
collectible will not
There is
be
a
like.
limit on what you can withdraw. But even
Exactly.
if you have 100k, you're not allowed to withdraw everything. Rest taxes
They
also.
will only-
Yeah, I mean,
That's why we
you.
go with the opinion 5.
Yeah, I mean, you can go with whichever opinion you want. Now, let me explain one thing before we go to the next slide because we're going to be here all night. Option 1, why do the Hanafi Deobandi scholars go with the first option? It's because they say that technically, let's say that you were to hypothetically, if the penalty is what, 10%? And the taxes are 20%? It's 30%, right? Hypothetically. Now, are you actually taking out 30%? Are you actually pulling out any of the money, or is that 30% being invested back the next year?
It's invested back.
It's invested back. You're not. So you're not. How they're saying that? How can you actually subtract that when in reality that 30% is actually being used in order to make money the next year? Does that make sense or no? It doesn't make sense. Am I talking Chinese? Okay. Let's do it with easier numbers. Let's say you have 100K. Then you do 10% off for penalties, 10K off, 20K off. What are you left with? 70K. If you're going with opinion 2, that's your zakatable amount. Again, all of the stuff about how much you can pull out, you guys know better than I do. I don't know. But let's say that what the Hanafi scholars will do, they'll say that no. This right here, this 30K, isn't it being invested back to make you more money the next year? Or is it just being taken out? If you wanted to take ownership right now, that's the question. If you wanted to take ownership. If you don't, then what are you doing? You're still benefiting off that money. And that's where the problem is for the Hanafis. So then you go with another opinion. This is,
See, if that 100,000 goes to 200,000
Mm.
next year, right?
yeah.
So the percentage is the same, 30%. You know what I'm saying? $200,000, 30%. So you took out, instead of 30,000, you took out 60,000. You see what I'm
Mm.
saying? So what I'm saying is just it increased, but at the same time, the 70% that you had before, which is the 70,000, it also increased to 140.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So it's proportional.
So yeah, this is why we have all the opinions. So you can do whatever you want. One thing I'm gonna say before I leave this slide, you can do whatever you want. At the end of this, does an imam have a 401k? Does an imam have a 401k? No. So why do I care? Right? So you do what you want, right? So at the end of the day, yeah,
I have a general question.
yeah.
Let's say I have 100,000,
Hmm.
but I have also debts, right?
We'll talk about that too. Alhamdulillah. Okay.
The last question before the talk.
Yeah, we're gonna be here till 11 o'clock.
On the board, you said, last year we had 100K.
Okay.
This year it became 130.
Okay.
Now, are you actually paying the zakat of 30K or 130K?
130.
But for 100 you already paid last year.
So we'll talk. Look, it's for example, if you have $50,000 in your bank, just money in your bank, you paid zakat on it, right? You paid it, it's gone. Now, when the next year comes, if you have that same money sitting there, are you going to pay zakat again?
Yes.
Yes. So same thing with this. Same thing with this. Watch. Okay. Let's just say you have 50K in the bank. Okay. You have 50K in your 401k. It's gonna end up being the same exact thing. Okay. You're gonna pay on the 50K. You do your thing, 2.5%. It's a certain number. I don't know if you want to do the math. You can do it. Okay. Now let's say hypothetically, what's 2.5? Let's just do the math. 1250. So what is gonna 48 something? What is it? Huh? 40, 48. So what is the whole number? Can anyone just pull out a calculator? It'll be easier for us. I want to subtract.
Yes, 40. Sounds like they're getting confused between taxes versus the.
Yeah.
So just because if you own, the guiding principle is the ownership. If you own the.
Okay. Let me do some easier numbers. You have $100. Okay. Pretend this is zakatable. Pretend. 48 cents. I can't concentrate right now, but okay. Sorry, I'm an American who can't do math in our heads. Okay. This is your bank account. Now, you paid zakat and now this is how much is left in your bank account. So this was what you had at start. This is what you had at end. Now, this becomes your new start. And when your new end comes, you're going to end up paying what on this amount right here. Right? Does that make sense? Every year, even if it's just sitting there. It's not like I paid it, khalas, it's my money. That's how taxes work. That's not how zakat works. It's the same thing with the 401k.
For instance, if I burn that 48, whatever left,
Yeah.
I burn it.
Zero. It's zero.
Zero. And then a day before the what do you call it? The zakat, the time of zakat.
Yeah.
So I got the same amount, for instance, or I got 50K.
If it hits zero, then you don't pay anything. You have to wait a whole year.
Yeah, but the day before.
Day before it hits zero,
It's a snapshot in time. It doesn't matter on that particular day, if you have a day.
wait. The person that has the question, let them ask the question. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever.
So the time came in to pay zakat.
Okay.
I have 50K.
Okay.
So I have to pay, because I already spent that money that from last year. This is a new 50K that I got. But I got it,
One day before.
yes.
You still pay zakat. Yeah. That's like how we talked about before in the beginning. Unless, okay, watch. Let's say there's 2 days before zakat is due. 2 days before zakat is due, you drop down to zero. You drop down to what? Zero. And then one day before zakat is due, you went up to 50,000. Right? That's what you're saying. So 0 to 50,000, now it's the zakat due date. What do you give it on? You give nothing. Why? Because you went down to zero. Your whole restarted. Your year restarted.
But isn't the ruling about this money being, the nisab money being there for the whole year?
I told you, it doesn't matter. That rule I told you classically, yes, you're right. But because money in America does not work statically, you can always drop below nisab every year if you wanted to. Then nobody would owe zakat. Their year would keep restarting. Let's say Muharram, I have nisab. Then in the middle of the year, I say, hey, I'm going to get rid of all of my money on purpose, or I'm going to put it in diamonds or something like that. Now I'm no longer sahibun nisab, right? Guess what? I can keep doing that. I can keep pushing my year. Does that make sense? That's what people in America end up doing to avoid zakat, but you shouldn't do that. Does that make sense? Does it make sense or no? So classically you're right, but it does not work that way in fatwas anymore, by the way. Because guess what? People don't live like that anymore. Their bank balances are constantly going up and down. Does that make sense? Okay. Stocks. If you are a day trader, it's like business, like normal. Right? So what amount are you going to give? Let's say that you own Apple shares. You own Apple shares. Let's say that your zakat due date comes. You're going to give 2.5%, obviously after you get all the other things that you own as well, right? It's not just, you don't do 2.5 for stocks and then 2.5 for cash and then 2.5 for something else. You put everything together, okay? What do you do it on? You do it on the retail price. Does that make sense? On the retail price. On the sale price. So let's say on your zakat due date, it's worth $100. That's the price that you're going to do it on. That's it. Very simple. It's not complicated. This is if you're a day trader, by the way, regularly, actively buying and selling and doing it regularly. If you're a long-term investor, this is where the 0.5, 1, all of that stuff comes for the IRA, 401ks, mutual funds, all of these things. Yasir Qadi, as well as a lot of modern scholars like Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen, all of them, they say that it's 0.5 to 1%. Because they say that there are tangible assets, there's actual things in the business, and then there's also services. And so we're not counting the services. There's no zakat on services, right? If I have a mechanic shop and I'm not selling any parts, is there zakat on that? No. Alhamdulillah, it's good business. Do services instead, right? Items are what zakat is on. Now, the reality is that why some scholars don't like this opinion is because then you have to actually go back and you should actually be looking at what's zakatable and what's non-zakatable. But people have an estimated number, 0.5 to 1. 0.5 is when there are more services in the business. 1% is when there are more like actual physical items that are zakatable. Does that make sense? So this is for long-term investors. Okay, makes sense? Right? So you have a mutual fund, all of these different things. Stocks are like business. Entire holding is subject to zakat, right? Because it's purchased with the purpose of what? Reselling, right? So it's a business zakat. It's no longer like your cash, right? Plus dividends, of course. That's just like getting money in your bank, normal. Now, here's a practical thing that you can take from stocks as well. Let's say that you promise pizza. He says to you that, hey, I've given you an opportunity to invest in my business, right? So, but you don't have to do anything, but you just invest in my business. What are you going to do? The profits that he gives you, you're going to give zakat on. Of course, that's easy, right? That's money you're getting in your pocket. And then you're going to do zakat on the percentage of zakatable assets. What's a zakatable asset in Promise Pizza? What is a zakatable asset in Promise Pizza? The earning, but let's say it's just in the store and he hasn't sold it yet. The pizzas, the merchandise, right? All the flour and all of the different things, you're going to give zakat on it. Does that make sense? So this is how you understand the thing before, which there are zakatable things like the products in the store, versus the things that are the services, right? So now you have to ask Naveed Bhai, how do you calculate what the product is and how much are you charging for service, right? So this is where the math gets confusing. Okay, let's make it clear. You own a grocery store. You own what? A grocery store. You are sahibun nisab on Ramadan 1. Then when Ramadan 1 the next year comes, what are you going to do? You're going to look at your inventory and you're just going to take that percentage out from the inventory that exists. If you sell out the day before completely, alhamdulillah, no zakat. No zakat.
So that's assuming you own the inventory.
Yeah.
There are businesses that actually don't own inventory, they go on.
Debt and credit. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. Debt and credit, all of that will come. Okay. Does this all make sense? It's not that complicated. By the way, if some of your stocks earning is haram, there's a different issue that we have to talk about later. But I'm assuming that everybody has halal stocks. Yeah.
What if I invested in a very high risk, like a startup or something? I don't know if it's, my money could become zero.
It just depends. If you reach that 1 year mark, then that's, if you still have the money, then great. If it goes down, then it's close. You don't have it. You can't give zakat from money that doesn't exist anymore, right? If let's say at the start of your nisab you had invested the year Ramadan 1, then Ramadan 1 the next year comes, but 6 months down in the middle the business dies. It's gone. Then there's no zakat on it. It's very okay. Rental properties. This is important for a lot of people, plus properties in general. If you live in the property yourself, no zakat. If the property is rented out for income, it's on the income itself, after insurance, after property tax, after all of that stuff, the money that goes into your bank account. It's like cash, right? If the property is actively listed for resale, then the 2.5% goes on the value of the property, right? Does that make sense? It hasn't been sold yet, but if your zakat due date comes, then you do the 2.5%. So the idea is sell it faster, don't sell it slower, right? Does that make sense? So each year, lunar year, even if it hasn't been sold yet. Now, the important thing is that how do you determine intent here? You determine intent when it's actually put up on the marketplace. Let's say somebody inherits land from their father. Brother Junaid gave me this question. You inherit land from your father, but you don't actually have an intent to sell it right now. You're not putting it on the marketplace. Maybe 20 years down the line you want to sell it. Do you have to pay zakat on it? No, because you didn't put it on the marketplace. You didn't do anything to substantiate your niyyah. Does that make any sense? Even if your niyyah is there, it doesn't matter. You didn't do anything to substantiate it. Things go based off of what exists, not based off what's in your mind. Does that make sense? Question answered? Okay. Huh? Dad? What do you mean, Dad?
Dad inherited, right? But if it is in the transition period where the niyyah is not made and the dad is still there, is that land then?
I mean, the land doesn't belong to you if your dad is still alive.
Right. So why is that transitionary period then?
Look, if the dad owns the land, right, and it's not on, you don't have Sam Sheikh trying to sell the land, right? Then the dad doesn't owe zakat. If it goes to the son eventually, and the son never goes to Sam Sheikh to sell that property, then those will owe zakat. That's it. But if once Sam Sheikh lists it, khalas, there's zakat on it, even if it sells or if it doesn't sell, once the zakat due date comes. Does that make sense? Because why? Why does that happen? It happens because the house becomes what? It becomes merchandise. It's becoming merchandise. You're trying to buy and sell. You're trying to do business with the house. Does that make sense? Huh? So what? Huh? Yeah, same thing with land too. Any property. It doesn't have to be the house. That's just an example. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, if the property is not rented, you just own it, and it's not for sale, and you might not even live in it, it doesn't matter, right? So it's not rented, it's not for sale, you don't live in it, but you own it. There's no zakat while you own it. Now, let's say once the property is sold in that situation, then again, 2.5% is normal. Yeah. By the way, I'm a beginner in this topic, so you can disagree. But at the end of the day, you do your own research. Okay? Go ahead.
We are not distinguishing this point two where the rent comes, you have deducted the taxes, insurance and stuff, and the amount is going into a bank account but still being used for your personal expenses and stuff. And then
Okay, look. If the rent gets used up, if the money that you earn from the rent gets used up, is there zakat on it? No, you don't have the money. The money has to exist. Again, this is only if the money just stays there.
the equation is same at the end of the year.
Yeah, same thing. It's not complicated. Yeah, the reason why we mentioned this point in the first place is so that nobody ends up going to give zakat on the value of the property. That's why we mention it, right? Otherwise, it's logical. The money that you get from rent goes into your bank account. It's part of your cash. You don't have to really think about it. But we have to explain it because somebody will come and be like, Sheikh, I just gave zakat on my $400,000 house that I have for rent. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You gave sadaqah, you didn't give zakat. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, loans upon you, meaning you have the debt. You have the what? The debt. This is the important thing where classically we're like, oh, I have debt, and let's say that you have the nisab is $1,000 again, right? And you have debt of $500,000. How did you get that debt? You have a mortgage or you have an Islamic financing loan. Do you subtract that $500,000? Classically, yes. But now, no, because guess what? Everybody is in debt. Everybody has a house with either Islamic finance or mortgage. Then guess what? Nobody in America owns zakat anymore. So, again, subtract debts from assets completely. That was the historical thing. But now everyone has debt. In fact, what do they tell you in America? That if you don't live on debt, you're dumb. You don't know how to get rich, right? That's the reality. Yeah.
If I have 401k
Mm.
and I borrow from my 401k,
Mm.
what is that? I have debts from that I have to pay back into it.
But
So
you
that's-
owe it to yourself.
That doesn't count, right? That doesn't count as debt.
I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. But I'm not really understanding, but maybe if we go through this, maybe you'll get something out of it.
Sometimes they let you loan, they let you borrow from your 401k.
Okay.
But you have to pay it back.
It,
So
de-
you don't incur.
it depends on if it's short-term debt or if it's long-term debt. That's where the difference comes. Okay. So opinion one on on loans that are upon you, right? They say depends on the kind of debt, right? So if it's consumption debt, the answer is no zakat, right? No zakat. Sorry, if it's consumption debt, you can subtract it. Sorry. If it's consumption debt, you can subtract. You're borrowing money in order to buy food, you can subtract it from your zakatable assets. Investment debt, your house, your mortgages, your second property, third property, fourth property, all of these different things, right? How much do you subtract? Now here's where the problem comes. Somebody will say you subtract 1 year's worth of your mortgage. Somebody will say no, just the monthly due, right? Generally, the majority of scholars go with the 12-month deductible. So, okay, what does this look like? Let's say that you own you owe 500K again. Now, in terms of your debt, if let's say it's in 1 year you pay 30K in mortgages, or per month you pay what's 30 divided by 12? 2,500. Okay, 2,500 per month. Sorry, bad handwriting. One scholar will tell you can subtract the 30K. That's the 12-month way. One scholar will tell you can subtract just the month's expenses, which is the 2,500. Now, if you were to do the 30K, there's a problem with that. Then you might end up becoming below nisab and then you won't owe zakat. If you do the whole $500,000, which was the classical way, then you definitely won't owe zakat. So generally what the scholars will end up going with is the lowest number so that you owe zakat. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, opinion two is that no, don't take debt out. You ignore the debt, right? You can't use it as a way to subtract anything. Does that make sense? Don't take that opinion because it'll be very problematic for you. Number 3 is long-term debt is not deductible except that which is due in that month right here. Does that make sense? Others will say 12 months. The third opinion is that short-term debt can be deducted, which can be paid off within 1 year. What is a short-term debt? So let's say that I use Easy Pay to pay for a ticket or something like that, and they say you need to pay back a 0 APR within 4 months. That is short-term debt. Does that make sense? Okay. So why is this, all of this is important? This is so that you can figure out whether you subtract it from your zakatable money. Does that make sense? Good? Okay. We're almost done. Now, loans you give to others, this is where people get really mad, okay? If you're going to get mad, don't give anybody else money, okay? If you're going to get mad, don't give anybody else money. Zakat is on the person giving the loan. Don't give money if you cannot pay zakat on it, okay? Zakat is on the person giving the loan. That's the general rule. What is it? That's the general rule. Okay. Now there are 2 types of debt that is owed to you that you're supposed to get back. Let's say that I give Haris money, right? This is the money that I'm supposed to get back from Haris. There's recoverable debt and then there's unrecoverable debt. Right? There's money that I know I'm going to get back from Haris, and then there's money I know, like, khalas, Haris is a bum, he's never going to give it back to me. Okay? Those are 2 types of debts. Now, the Hanafi scholars, they'll go into this and they'll say that in the recoverable debt, there's 2 types. There's strong and there's weak. Strong debts are things like gold, silver, cash, right? Something that you, or unpaid invoices, right? That technically I have to pay zakat on. When am I going to pay it? When Haris gives it back to me, right? That's what the Hanafi scholars say, right? So you owe the zakat, right? So if Haris gives it back to me for 4 years, I'm going to give it when Haris finally gives it back to me. But I'm going to do it each year. So let's say it's $10,000, right? This is where the Hanafis are more, now you don't want to be a Hanafi anymore, by the way. Okay, so let's say it's $10,000 that I gave to Haris. And he gives it back to me. This is year 1, 2, 3, 4. Each year I'm going to do 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. Now, each year I have to give zakat on it. Do I actually have to give zakat on it? I can do it at the end. So let's say that hypothetically there's a number, what's 2.5 of 10K? Let's just say it's $200. Okay, then are you going to do the math for all of it, for each one? I'm just going to give you easy numbers. Let's just do 200. Let's just do 175. This is just random numbers. 150, 125, hypothetically. Now I owe this much this year. Then I owe this much this year. Then I owe this much this year. Then I owe this much this year. Do I have to pay these each year? No. I'm going to collect all of these numbers and do it right here, and that's when I'm going to pay it. Does that make sense? That's the Hanafi way, okay? Weak debt is, for example, employees' unpaid wages, right? It's a debt in the boss's dhimma, right? He has to give it to the other person, right? Unpaid rental income, outstanding mahar, right? Your wife, you owe her mahar. Zakat is only on received wealth and not on past years, okay? If you're in this situation, then we can talk. Unrecoverable debt is money that you're never going to get back. Okay, let's go into this in more depth, and we're almost done. Recoverable debt. Option 1, pay zakat for all past years when money is collected. So if you have a 4-year loan like this, then you're going to take each of these numbers out, and then that last number, the total is going to be your zakat, right? So how many times are you technically supposed to give zakat? For each year normally. And then when do you actually have to pay it? At the end of those 4 years. But you still owe it. Imam al-Shafi'i, he's very, very similar. And he says that every year you give zakat, but not at the collection like Imam Abu Hanifa right here. He says you have to give the 200 this year, then you have to give the 175 this year, then the 150 this year, and the 125 this year. Okay. Why does Imam Shafi'i say that? Because he says the point is to protect the money of the poor. If I have to wait 4 years to give it, that means for 4 years they're not getting any money. Does this make sense? Okay. Opinion 3, which is the one that everybody loves, Imam Malik. Imam Malik says, no. Once this point comes right here, right? This point comes right here, you pay zakat. But for which year? All 4? No, just the last one. So, the 125. Right? So that's the Malik opinion. Unrecoverable debt. For Imam Malik, same thing, 1 year, the last year. Imam Abu Hanifa, he says that if it's bad debt, this is where unrecoverable debt is. He calls it bad debt. He says that if the person says, I don't owe you any money, Haris says, I don't owe you any money, Sheikh, I deny it. No zakat on it. If Haris admits it, then there's also no zakat on it unless he can pay it back. Does that make sense? Does all of this make sense? All of this you can re-ask me if your particular situation involves that. Okay. Zakat is due on inventory acquired with the purpose of being sold again. This one is we covered already. The calculation of zakat will be on the goods retail value. Real estate acquired with the intention of being leased out is exempted from zakat. What is zakat there? The rent. Okay, you guys are tired. Every partner is responsible for dispensing zakat of his own percentage share. Okay. Now, business zakat. We're almost done, I promise. The cash in your business is zakatable. The stock in your trade is zakatable, the inventory. And last thing, your cash and trade receivables. Let's say, you guys know what accounts receivable is. I don't have to teach a finance class, right? Accounts receivable is also zakat because you're eventually going to get that money. If you really think you're not going to get that money, then it's a different story. But most businesses eventually do get that money. Non-zakatable, the property of your business, the machinery, the baking unit at Promise Pizza, there's no zakat on it. Furniture, service receivables, no zakat. And trademark, copyright, and patents. Okay? So this is business zakat. So how are you going to do it? You're going to look, this is when I started my nisab. At the end of the year, how much inventory do I have? How much cash do I have? How much receivables do I have? How much do I have? And I'm going to do 2.5%. Okay. Does that all make sense? That was the easy one. And the same thing applies to stocks. Okay. Who deserves zakat? Okay, I'm going to sit down now. Actually, I want to explain one more thing here. So the nisab is the same for business zakat. A year has to pass. Let's say that you start a business and then at 6 months the business fails. Like we said, the startup example. It fails, no zakat, right? If it reaches the 1 year, then whatever the inventory, stock, cash, all that is, that's what you look at. Now I said you pay zakat on the wholesale value of the products that you have or the retail value. Which one is cheaper, wholesale or retail? I'm asking a simple question. If you go to Sam's Club and buy water versus H-E-B and buy water, which one is cheaper? Sam's Club, because it says wholesale, because they're selling you more quantity, and so they're calculating the margins and stuff like that, right? So one opinion is that you do it on the wholesale value. Why? So even with stocks, you do it on the wholesale value of the stock. On business inventory, you do it on the wholesale value, right? What you bought, like if, let's say that Naveed Bhai goes, again, sorry, I'm using him as an example so it can become relatable. He goes to Sam's to buy his ingredients. Then he'll give it on the wholesale value. Why? Because if he was to liquidate it right now, if he was to liquidate, he wants to liquidate it today, which price would people be willing to pay for getting his products? Wholesale or retail? No, which price would people be willing to buy it for? Wholesale, right? So that's what you can easily liquidate it for. Man, okay. Now, this is one opinion, the wholesale amount. The other opinion is that it's based off of the value that you receive from actually selling it. So generally, if you sell it at retail like he does, then retail. If he sells it at wholesale, then like wholesale. So Sam's Club does zakat with wholesale or retail? Wholesale. Promise Pizza does zakat on what? Retail. And then the third opinion is just retail, and that's what I told you as the default, by the way. I would go with retail. I would go with retail because that's the majority's opinion. Okay. Now, one more thing. Sorry. If you have, let's say, a matcha shop. You have a matcha shop, okay? Or coffee shop. Yemeni coffee shop, okay. If you have a Yemeni coffee shop, Obviously, you're going to give zakat on the end products, right? The end products, that's easy. That's like how any store is. But are you going to give zakat on the ingredients? Yes or no? Ingredients.
If you're not selling them, like if you're selling coffee beans, then yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not selling coffee beans,
What do you think?
you're only selling the inventory.
That's considered inventory. You're going to give it, right? But once it goes into the finished product, then you're going to do the value of the finished product, not their raw material. Does that make sense? So let's say that I have, you have the drink, and one of the parts of the drink is milk, right? If my zakat time comes, I have like 1,000 drinks set up. Okay, so that's my inventory. But also I have a bunch of supplies in the back, which includes milk, also on the milk. Now, generally, obviously, the milk itself is going to be cheaper than the drink. So if you have to give zakat, make sure the day that you have to give zakat, you don't do any business, so then you owe less money. Just bad example, but anyways. Okay. So the zakat of camels is camels, the zakat of crops is crops, the zakat of merchandise is cash for the benefit of the poor. Okay. Who can receive zakat? There are 8 categories. The ayah is إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها, all the way till the end of the ayah. I'm not going to read it all to you. What is the difference between faqir and miskin? Arab scholars have different meanings. One of them, I'm not going to tell you which one, but it differs on which Arab scholar you go to. The faqir could be someone who has nothing or has enough to just get by but doesn't really he has stuff but he can't get by actually, sorry. He might have a house, he might have a car, right? But he's still zakat eligible. Does that make sense? Because he doesn't have nisab. So regardless, it's a poor person. Then there's a person that is zakat collector, right? Whoever that is in the community, if that's their full-time job. And again, the poor and needy, they'll get the amount that is enough to satisfy their needs. The zakat collector will get enough to satisfy his wage, right? Mu'allafati qulub, the Hanafi scholars say that this door is closed because Umar radiallahu anhu closed it. The rest of the scholars, they say no, it's still open. It's in order to either appease to non-Muslims to bring them into Islam, or it's in order to appease new Muslims in order to make sure that they, get stronger in Islam. And there's a lot of different examples of that, but I'm not going to go through it. Freeing of slaves, can't do that one anymore. Debtors, somebody that owes debt, they're eligible to have zakat. Now don't come and tell me, Sheikh, I have my mortgage, can you give me some zakat? No, I'm not going to give you zakat. Why? Because we went back to that necessary, all of that stuff before. Fi sabilillah, those people that are fighting in the path of Allah that need armor, weapons, you give them those armors and weapons. If they're going on Hajj, you equip them with money enough to do the Hajj itself. Travelers, somebody that loses their way, they go broke, and they say, hey, I can't get back to my country. If they're not lying, then you should give them zakat. Okay. Okay. Now, can I give zakat to these? General welfare projects? No. So, some scholars say you can give to orphanages, but it should actually be spent on the kids, right? Not on administrative costs. Hospitals? No. Madrasas, Islamic schools? No. Unless the money goes to the kid scholarship, like it's actually be used on the kid. But if it goes to pay for salaries of teachers, X mark. Don't give zakat to that institution. Construction project for mosques and hospitals? No. Unfortunately, it's become a modern thing where what happens is that you see this one fi sabilillah, they say giving to the masjid is fi sabilillah. It's not fi sabilillah, okay? The descendants of the Prophet ﷺ, they also do not receive zakat. A rich person also does not receive zakat. Can you give your wife or your husband zakat? No, you cannot give your wife or husband zakat, okay? One's parents, grandparents, no. One's children, no. Can you give your nephew zakat? Yes. Can you give your uncle zakat? Yes. And it's actually better if you give zakat to your family than to give it to random strangers. And it's better to give zakat locally than it is to give globally, unless there's a need like Palestine or Lebanon or Syria or Kashmir or those places. But again, the general is always better with local. Non-Muslim employees, as like, hey, this guy's Sharia is not applied on him, let me just pay his wages with it. Don't do that. Incarcerated people are also not allowed to receive zakat either. Okay, what can you deduct from your zakat? This is important. Your living expenses, such as utility bills, that are yet to be settled for that month, not for 12 months. Goods purchased on credit, your credit card bill, you can subtract it for that month that zakat is due. Unsettled mahar, you can subtract it. Unpaid employee compensation, if you're a boss, you can subtract it. Number 5, short-term personal loans, not long-term personal loans like your mortgage, right? All this makes sense? These are all just subtractions that you can do. These are deductibles. Okay. This is the last slide. Okay. This one is important. What if I haven't paid zakat in years? Okay. This one is going to be very beneficial, and I think this one is the one that is very important for a lot of people. Okay. I'm not going to write on the board. I'll explain it. Okay. In year 1, you have $100,000. If you do 2.5%, you owe $2,500. This is like, you owe $2,500. Now, did you pay this $2,500 4 years ago? You know you've never paid it. You were, at that time, you weren't a religious Muslim. You didn't feel like doing zakat. You didn't even know what zakat was. You didn't even hear of this 2.5%. But now, the 5th year comes, let's say on the 5th year, you say, hey, I feel like being religious and I want to pay the zakat for the 4 years before. So what are you going to do? You're going to pay the 2.5 on the $100,000 that you had in year 1. Now, when year 2 comes, right, let's say that you have $100,000 again. You have $100,000 again. Are you going to pay 2.5%? No. Why? Because this is in retro. It's not like you're living in that year anymore. That year already is gone. You already missed the opportunity. So what are you going to do? You're going to take this year, the 2,500, you're going to subtract it from that. That gives you that 9750, and that's where this number comes. This is retro zakat. You guys understand retro? It's like you didn't pay it. You never paid it. And so now you're trying to like make up for zakat. It's like making up for salahs that you didn't pray 10 years ago. Why do you do that? It's because of the fact is that you, if you were to try to do 2.5%, it wouldn't actually be an accurate representation of the money that you had that year. You didn't have $100,000 in that sense, right? You're only thinking that you had $100,000 because of the fact that you're doing it backwards. Then when the 3rd year comes, you have this much money left. You're going to do 2.5 on that, and that's going to be your zakat. You're going to do it on that, that's going to be your zakat. This is if you're doing it backwards, if you missed years. Does that make sense how to do that? Now, you could do it another way, which is you could go look at your bank account statements and figure out the money for each year. And that would be actually a more accurate way of doing it. But if you don't feel like doing it a more accurate way and you feel like doing it this way, then this is the best next thing that you can do. Okay. I don't think I have anything else. Let's see. Yeah, that's the last thing. Okay. Any concerns? I know this topic, look, before I finish, this topic is a contentious topic because money is the most beloved thing to all of us, right? And so the goal of each person should be, I'm trying to pay my zakat. And so that should be the goal, that should be the intention. And if that's the goal and an intention, then you do what you think is what Allah wants and what you can actually do. What you cannot do, that's a different story. But what you can do, do. Does that make sense? That's the general rule.
Has the Ulama started talking about health savings account?
Health savings account is like 401k and Roth IRA and all that stuff.
Only used for your health. It's going to be only used for doctor benefits or pharmacy or anything like that. Not for anything else. Cannot be used anything else. Even after you invested and whatnot.
So again, you would go look at all the opinions of 401k, Roth IRAs, all of those things, and then from those opinions, you would make the arguments, right? Okay, do you have ownership? Do you not have ownership? Can you choose to do whatever you want with it? Can you not? Can you invest it how you want? If you say, no, I cannot use it how I want. I can't invest it how I want, right? Then you might end up taking the opinion that you don't owe zakat on it. Or you might end up taking the opinion that, you only owe the zakat on the amount that you use. There's a lot of opinions that you might end up going with that. But you're going to use the same philosophy that you used here. Same philosophy. Does that make sense? Okay. Anything else? Yeah. So I'll tell you something. The reality is, like I told you in the first slide. What is the first slide right here? That traditional studies, this takes weeks. I'll be honest, I've been studying for the last like 2 weeks to do this whole presentation, right? And I gave it to you in like 2 hours. Workshop in the West takes 2 days. Lectures in the West take 2 hours. If you go to Yasir Qadhi's YouTube channel right now, he has a 1-hour lecture on 401k. 1-hour lecture just on 401k. And by the way, he doesn't even go into as much detail as I went into and gave you all these opinions. He gives like 2 or 3 opinions, and that's what he stops at, right? So if that's 1 hour of Sheikh Yasir, who is very precise in his speaking and his talking, then you know there's a there's a lot of information. Now, again, if you are like, hey, this went over my head, then you can talk to me and I can help you. Now, if you say I want to do livestock and stuff like that and crops, then come back to me after Ramadan and we'll talk separately. But I'm not going to go research all that stuff for you. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, there's a lot of differences of opinion. They're there, okay? That's the deen of Allah. Okay.